Hello, hello, and welcome to GrowMe. And today's episode is part of our series called Garden Variety, where I'm interviewing our garden warriors, and they're sharing their stories about how they came to relate to the natural world and all of its glories, so that it can inspire you to also do the same and to see how we can incorporate growing together on our journeys in all the ways. And today I'm very excited because we have Molly Bouffard. Is that how you say her last name?
Yeah, good job.
And it's multi-prismatic and multi-dimensional, the ways that I know Molly and all that she does and all that she is. So I'm excited to share her story with you today. Hello, Molly.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here.
Yay. So you, Master Gardener,
Yeah.
how did you start gardening? Yeah, how did you get on this path?
It started a long, long time ago when I was a kid, but it wasn't like more formal until recently. So when I was little, my mom had a garden and we lived in the middle of the woods in a ravine. And it didn't get a lot of sun, and she somehow managed to make it this explosive, beautiful garden of color. So I don't remember her like actually teaching me anything or like asking me to help her. It was just such a constant part of my childhood that I think it just like sunk in. But I used to go on walks like picking the wildflowers and taking them home and making bouquets. And I used to love to go out to the mint patch and I'd like pick a bunch and come back and make tea with it. So like I always liked just having my hands on things. And actually what I always really appreciated was just observing things. So I used to like pick the wildflowers and I'd take them home and make little arrangements, and I would use like a disposable camera and I would just take pictures of them, like staged photos.
Pre-Instagram.
Yeah, even before Instagram. That's so funny. Yeah, no smartphones, so like I had to wait for them to be developed, and I still have a few of them. I had this little frosted glass butterfly dish, and I used to love picking the little the little violets that would come up in the spring and the little bluets, and I would like stick them in there and like tap them all down and fill it chock full. And I just thought it was like the most satisfying thing in the world.
It's satisfying to me, and I didn't even do it. Did it through you. Yeah, well, one of the things that I love that you're saying, I was just thinking about this yesterday as I was walking around currently at my parents' house, and I was walking around outside and realizing, that they've always been, especially my mom, but both of them really like such gardeners, and similar to what you're saying, I never really did stuff with them even or learned anything. But I find that like now on my gardening journey, like so much of it somehow I inherited, like through osmosis or, like through our DNA or something. And I think I want to just like point to this because I really feel right now that there's like an activation going on within people because it is in our ancestral lines, like we have inherited this knowledge into our cellular data and DNA, and so the fact that, all of a sudden, like, you're a master gardener and like so much, like, so many things and how to do things, and so I really feel like that could be really inspiring to people, like, because I feel like it's really being activated right now.
Yeah, and you keep saying Master Gardener, and I love it because when I took the class, I was like, I can't wait till I can put Molly Bouffard Master Gardener. It's like so excited for that. I just love the little sidebar on that too. If people are interested in studying gardening or Master Gardener, I feel like you should just go for it because if you love it, it will be fun and enjoyable, and don't be intimidated by it. And there's so many things to learn about that there's something for everybody. So don't let it intimidate you. And it's such a cool group of people to meet too when you're friends with people who are gardeners and farmers and landscapers and earth workers. It's just a really great group of people to be around.
Yeah, so in case anybody doesn't know, because I use a lot of like what sort of hyperbolic terms like garden warriors, but like a master gardener is a thing, right? So
Yeah.
like, what is it for people that don't know?
So it's at least in the U.S. it's through the university extension system. So every state that has a state university has an extension, and that's where like the 4-H's and any, you know, like soil testing labs, that kind of thing, are usually through extensions. And it's just it's a program that lasts about a year altogether, and you end up with a certificate at the end, and you have to take a test, and you have to do all these volunteer hours and projects. So it's a pretty substantial class, but it's very spread out, and they it's very much focused on volunteering and involving your community. So that's another part of it that I love, is that it's not just for people to like learn how to set up their own garden space. It's to really encourage people to get out and start teaching other people too. And they do, I forget, it's like in the millions of volunteer hours every year, all the volunteers throughout the country. So it's a really pretty phenomenal group. And you go to class like one day a week, and then you have a big project you have to do. We have to go out and identify all these trees, shrubs, and vines. And you have community service projects, and then a test at the end. So, but it's very well supported, and I had so much fun doing it. I went through UConn.
Right. So say there's a person interested in gardening, then they would go and search online for like their local master gardeners, right? Or gardening. What would they search for to find theirs?
Well, I would just Google like whatever state you're in. So like the University of Indiana Extension Office in your county, you know, or the university probably will have like a website for it that will then like list out all the counties. So usually each county has an extension office. And then there's a coordinator for each extension office, and that would be the person you could write to.
Like once you Google it, right, and then find yours, then you can either like become a master gardener like you did, right, which is basically like serving the community. Or I know I've done this, you know, if you have gardening questions, you can go and ask, or like go attend seminars and things like that for free, right? So it's like in order to educate yourself or find out things, and especially it's great because they're local, right? So yeah, there's those two different things. What were you going to say?
Oh, good point, in that you can Google anything you want online or watch YouTube videos, but there's really nothing better than somebody who like lives 10 minutes down the road from you and knows exactly what your climate's like and knows exactly what wild animals are around. So it's really helpful. You can, not only can you go to classes and things, and some of them are free, like they'll have free days, you know, at a local farm where you can bring a plant that you have a question about or something, but they also have paid classes. Like I took one earlier that was about color in your garden, which I never, like I always kind of just put stuff out that I think is pretty, but there's a whole art and science to the color behind things too. So that was kind of cool. But you can also contact them directly with like very specific questions and send pictures, or call or go into the office. So if you have a pest, like something that's been eating one of your shrubs, or a rhododendron that's dying from some unknown cause, they can kind of walk you through it and help you diagnose it or give you next steps of what to do too. So it's like a live action Google for your garden.
I love it, and I want to support you in exactly what you said, which is the kind of the whole reason we're doing GrowMe, right? Is that like, yes, you can Google things, yes, you can watch YouTube videos, like you can do all that stuff, but like you said, there is nothing like having someone there, right, that really like you can dive into with it, that can help you kind of troubleshoot it, and especially someone, you know, local that knows, because that's like so much of what gardening is. It's the earth in your area that you're in, right?
Absolutely.
So on that note too, I happen to know that you are also studying permaculture, right? And that you recently moved to this beautiful location that we see behind you and have been creating your homestead. So how has that journey been like, and how's that going?
It's been amazing. I have to say 2020 has been pretty phenomenal in some respects.
You don't hear that much, so I appreciate it.
On the bright side of things, yeah, we bought in March in Connecticut in the US a farmhouse that was built in the early 1800s on 3 acres of land. And it's got, the best part about it is that it's got a lot of little different microclimates and little areas in it. So there's a little stream out back that has a cow pasture behind it. And there's my favorite spot is there's this mossy area next to all of these hemlock trees with the old stone wall. And I love to just go back there and sink my feet in. We've got a meadow that we let grow wild so we can watch the succession of wildflowers.
Mm.
So it started out with daffodils, and then there was yarrow and St. John's wort, and now there's goldenrod. And the coolest,
all of these healing plants.
so pretty, it really is. And then in the summer, the best part about it was that it was just lightning bug central. There were so many fireflies out there that I haven't seen fireflies like that in a long time, and dragonflies. So it just attracts all this wildlife, which is really important. And what I love about my fiance is that he's the kind of person that, like, when he sees a flower in the grass, he'll mow around it. So it's actually kind of mostly his idea. And then when he said it, I was like, that's brilliant, to keep it wild. One, so it's like less that he has to mow, but two, there's no reason to like always shear your grass down to the ground. There's like literally nothing to be gained by it. And what it does when you don't do that is provides a habitat for wildlife all year long, even in the winter, because the bugs, some of the bugs will like live in the stems of the flowers throughout the winter, or the birds will have the seeds to feed on in the colder months. So it's one of our favorite parts, just because it's pretty, but also because what it represents, which is we're leaving a big part of our land just for nature to enjoy.
I love that. And you have plenty that you get to enjoy too. And you are quite the earth magician as well. Like even when you were little and you were like making little concoctions and putting them together. You're still doing that now, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. Yes, I did. I love to brew mint tea, get like just the right level of sugar and stand over like my boiling cauldron. Yeah, so I guess I still like to do that. So this spring, so we moved in March, and it was so fun because we got to really start from scratch and start really early. So we built some raised beds out of wattle, which is woven sticks. And you mentioned permaculture, which is trying to grow things in a way that's inspired by nature and also to be regenerative. So instead of like going out and driving to Tractor Supply to buy plastic fencing that had been made in China and shipped over the ocean and is gonna break down and send plastic particles into the soil at some point in the future, we traipsed through our woods and found branches and just wove these little the raised beds. And I love them because I was inspired by the gardens of Colonial Williamsburg when we first moved in, which are like very systematic and geometrical, which surprised me a little bit because it's not normally my thing, but I think they just went so well with the house. I was like really feeling it. So it's a good blend of like earthy and structured. But anyways, we built the raised beds because the soil right out back behind the house is very rocky and thin, and it didn't have a lot of nutrients. And my goal this spring, especially because of COVID and a lot of the, unrest and anxiety and everything happening, part of what I wanted to do is to make sure that I had my own food supply. So before we even moved, we lived in an apartment, and I bought and started thousands of seeds. We didn't even have a house yet, but I was like, I'm going to have a garden. I don't care where it has to grow. And I wanted to have enough to give to other people. So it turns out we ended up with this beautiful place that I got to plant most of the things. And I practiced some sheet mulching techniques. So we got compost from the forest out behind our house, so leaves, and I went to a local farm and got some goat manure and made my first hot compost heap. And yeah, it was a total experiment because I've never done that before. I've always in the past, before I learned more through my studies, was very much like I would just do things, which is great, and a lot of the times it worked out. But it was nice this year to really know what I was doing for sure, know how to do it better or to be successful. So the sheet mulching worked out really great. And I have, just jogging my memory, I planted so many things. So I wanted to plant things that were like staple crops. So I planted some things I know that I love, like tomatoes and peppers. But I also tried some new things like quinoa and amaranth and corn because I'd love to be able to make my own flour, for example. And I grew a lot of pumpkins and squash because those keep really well through the winter. You can eat their seeds or the flesh, either one. And I interplanted it with a lot of flowers, sunflowers for the seeds again. Eggplants, herbs, just a lot of different things. But the goal, beans was a huge one to dry, and I canned some carrots. And I've actually started for the first time ever some fall crops, which are things that grow good in the cold weather. So like spinach. And yeah, it's just been a really fun experiment. And I love seeing what comes and goes with the seasons, you know. And you mentioned concoction. So something else I like to do is to brew drink mixes, so like shrubs and syrups and things like that. So it's great. I made jams and jellies and canned beans and things. So now I have, for example, peach butter and strawberry jam that I can have in the middle of winter. So yeah, I guess that's the really big overview. It sounds like a lot, but
well, yeah, you've been doing a lot.
It was crazy. That's what I guess I was getting back to, like why I thought 2020 is great, because I'm very fortunate. I get to work from home and I have this space, so I was able to put the time and attention into it. But also, like, I had been thinking about it for a while, and so when I got here, a lot of the planning and like mental preparation I had done, so it just came down to executing it, which I think there's something to be said for learning how to plan your garden too.
There is something to be said for that. I similarly like use my intuition and I do things. It's been interesting to learn, like you said, actually some things about that. Yeah, so it's amazing all that you've been doing and creating. And, you know, quite frankly, though, like you said, you've kind of been doing it all your life. And like, I feel like you have, in a sense, been like planning this ever since you were that little girl, right? Like making those teas. And this is kind of like the dream coming to fruition, right? And the execution time.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. And it's part of your magic, I happen to know. And oh yeah, so you mentioned your beds made out of the wattle. I was really inspired by those, and so Molly is actually instrumental in our Instagram feed for GrowMe. So you can go to GrowMe Gram and look us up, and you can see those beds on there because they were really cool. And I was using some with like logs and stuff, but I was like, oh, this is next level. Squad goals. I want to make official beds. I'm just very constantly inspired by you. And so, you know, we're working together on this initiative. So Molly has like 2 / multiverse of roles here. And I want to ask you, you know, about each of those. So the first one is in relationship to GrowMe. So I wanted to ask you why are you working on this, and what is important to you about the world, about growing things, about food security, which you mentioned. Why is that important, and why are you motivated to work on something like this?
I think about this all the time.
I
I feel like I just want to like go back 2 steps when I'm listing out all those things that I did. I just really like eat, sleep, and breathe this. So for me, like that's what I do. Like I don't really watch TV. I don't do many other things. Like I will just spend 12 hours canning tomatoes. So I just want to put it out there too that I know not everybody is like either ready or wanting to do that. So, but I also fully believe there's an expression out there for everybody. And it doesn't matter that you don't want to, or you don't have the time right now to do all of that stuff. That's no reason to not start. Like just pick something that interests you. Like if you're really into cooking, then just grow a really phenomenal little herb garden, you know, or if you want to get into homesteading, like just try a compost pile this year. Like you don't have to try to do everything. So
yeah, well, I feel like, you know, you and I are kindred spirits in a lot of ways, but we're all super into like wormholing and full immersion. I'm the same way, right? When I started this garden, I was like full on all the time. I also don't watch TV. This is like also an advertisement, just about like, you know, time. But I feel like the undercurrent to that is that question I asked you, right? It's not just about like not watching TV or, you know, because we like to or not. I feel like there's a real deep motivation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, why are you doing that? Why are you canning 12 hours a day?
For me, a big piece of it is spiritual in a way. So I really, really love just connecting to the earth as a sentient being in this beautiful presence. And oh no, Chris is using the lawnmower. I just want to
He's like lawn mowing around little flowers right now to prove your point.
This is so funny.
I love it.
Yes, I really love connecting to the earth, but then also to all the humans who've connected with the earth before me. So there's all these, so many traditions just passed down consciously and subconsciously through the generations. Like you said at the beginning, like it's just in our DNA. It's in our DNA to notice we're coming up on the autumn equinox. So there's that happening, and it's just, it just makes me so happy to think that no matter where you come from on the planet, like your ancestors marked these special times of year. They all did. It doesn't matter where you're from. The equinoxes, the solstices, the stars, the spring, the growing seasons, like everybody has similar stories and myths surrounding these. And I just love plugging into that and connecting to it. So for me, gardening really, it's so seasonal. And even in the middle of the winter, you'd think like there's nothing to do with your garden, but that's the whole point, because the year goes around in a circle, and it's the cycle of, you know, birth and life and death and regeneration. And so, yeah, in the wintertime, if you live where there are seasons, like you're supposed to kind of just hunker down and not do too much and enjoy the fruits of your labor. And I enjoy that, and I love all the celebrations throughout the year. Like, so today, for example, I'm celebrating Mabon by myself. I have my new hat. I absolutely was wearing while I was drying herbs by myself in the kitchen wearing my pajamas. So that's a celebration of, it's the second harvest celebration in Northern European traditions at any rate. And it's all about bringing in almost the last harvest. Pretty much everything is coming in. And so it was a mix for me of kind of spiritual and tactile as I was crumbling the herbs and smelling them and putting them in jars. And then I went out to my beds and I took down all the tomatoes, and I'm thinking about composting my beds for the winter so that they can rest in the dark and the soil can get really good and healthy. So that's a huge part of it for me. And it just gives me so much joy and fulfillment and satisfaction that quite honestly, I don't really want to do anything else. But I love sharing it with people. And what I find is that the more I talk about it and share what I'm doing, the more people that they have a little garden, or this was the first year that they tried saving seeds, or they want to do a trash pickup on the beach or something, or whatever it is. I feel like it just, if I can live that fully and completely, it makes it unavoidably noticeable to people around me. And that's not why I do it, but the interaction from it, and seeing the effort then that other people are putting out, and the care that they're giving to the earth, and knowing that I can like catalyze that and be a part of it in a channel, and help bring joy through the celebrations or the personal satisfaction of someone coming to me and telling me that like they were afraid to landscape their yard before, but now they did, and they love it so much. So I think that's huge for me. It's very much like a spiritual, community, heart-centered thing. And I also, on that note, like being in the garden, or just, you know, if you're pruning things or setting things up, for me, I get into a real flow, and it is very meditative. So it's just so many reasons why I love it. It makes me feel so good and safe in a way, which might feel strange to say in this day and age, because it might feel like the earth hates us, or she just like wants to get rid of us. And I'm like, I don't feel that at all. I feel like such a warmth and a connection, and a really wanting to partner. And one of the things I love about permaculture is the concept of observation, which is just really noticing where you are. And to me, I live in New England, so I'm lucky I get to see like the 4 seasons cycling through. But I feel like no matter where you are, there's something beautiful to look at. But so often we're just like, we're so busy, we're driving really fast, we're late to work, we're annoyed at somebody, we're just in our heads or thing. But if you stop, and it blows my mind every time I think about it, and look outside, like behind me, how many shades of green are there? Like, that's mind-boggling. All the leaves and the way they ripple in the air, and the different trees and the different shapes, and knowing that like in each tree there's all these bugs, and these trees have been around for hundreds of years, and there's bugs in the soil, and there's birds in the trees, and there's so much happening, and it's all so intricate and amazing. It's just absolutely astounding. Like, if you really stop and think about it, and if you just stop and look and take it all in, it's like being in a video game or something. For me, it gets like high res, like high saturation, and it just like hits me. So I just love to share that with people, because I feel like that's what the earth wants from us, or for us, and that's what humans are capable of, that makes us so amazing. So I'm not one of those people, like, I'm definitely an environmentalist, I really care about the planet, but I don't think that humans ruined it all, and I don't think that we're not supposed to be here, and I don't think that earth would be better off without us. I think that humans are really cool, and the human experience is like one of the most amazing things in the world. Like, yeah, it can be really hard, and I've had a lot of hard things happen to me in my life, but that's kind of why it's so amazing, and how cool that we're here in this detailed earth. And I mean, I guess, yeah, going back to like when I was a kid, I loved to just take pictures of those little flowers, and I was like, holy cow, it's so amazing, I have to take pictures of how cool it is. So I just love being able to be a part of sparking that in other people, and seeing that kind of light them up, because I feel like when the critical mass of people feel that way, as opposed to disconnected, apathetic, anxious, sad, frustrated, whatever it is that they're disconnecting from, which, by the way, like being in nature helps with all of that stuff. There's literally nothing bad about like being in nature more. I just really feel like that's when something's gonna click with humanity, and I feel like it already is. And I just wanted to go a step further with that. And so there's a quote I love by John Muir, and I can't say it exactly, but he says, John the Baptist was never more eager to baptize everybody in the River Jordan than I am to baptize my fellow humans in the glories of nature, or something like that. And like, so that's how I feel. I feel like John the Baptist. I'm like, you come here, you come here. And like, you in the river. Don't you see how beautiful it is? And then when people do, like, then they're another person who can go out and like dunk more people in the river. And it just, yeah, I feel that very strongly. So that's why I do it. And yeah, that's why I do things despite being nervous or scared or feeling overwhelmed. Like there were times in my Master Gardener class I was like, I think I just want to quit. I don't know why I'm doing this, or so yeah, but it's just, yes, it's a burning, I feel very much like a disciple of the earth.
I love that. Oh, I love that. And yeah, it's my personal belief, and I think the belief of a lot of people, perhaps including you, that coming into that relationship with the earth, that deep sense of connection and that embodied nature, which we all share, is actually, like you said, the solution to the anxiety that people are feeling, and actually the solution to the huge environmental disasters that are happening, because when we establish and cultivate that connection, then we act in ways that are actually restorative. And like you said, when we reach a kind of critical mass of people who are doing that, that has the potential to reverse climate change, or take things in a whole different direction, as well as being so healing for people personally. And just, I love like how you light up when you talk about that, like that energy. Is something that we can all feel and all benefit from. And yeah, and I also just love to, because we all at some point experience fear or uncertainty, right, or nervousness, or whatever. And it's like just the experience of doing it and being engaged, right, like is the thing. And so that's the other thing that I really love about you and what you're doing, and how you translate this like felt sense of the earth and the environment and nature into the work that you personally also do with individual people. Like you said, you love to help people connect. So in what ways do you do that with people as part of your own personal work?
Couldn't agree more with you. By the way, you summed up exactly what I was trying to say, which is that I feel like it's great to pass laws and try to do things to help climate change, or endangered species, or whatever it is, but I feel like that until each of us just literally just loves the planet and is so enraptured with the earth and how amazing it is, we will have no choice. Like it won't even be like, oh, should I vote for that or not? I don't know, it's good or bad. It will just be like, you will just love it so much that your whole life will change. Like you will just do things differently. You will just not, we went through so much freaking effort to build those wattle beds. Like it was hard. And Chris, I have to give him a shout out. Like he has more muscles, so he did a lot of the work. But like it just was not even on my radar to go buy something, because I feel like once you internalize it, there's just no going back, and it's a good thing. And that's actually what will change. And then I think that's why I want to get so many more people connected, because I feel like we've been banging our head against a wall of just being like so negative about this, but really about, people who are very negative environmentalists, and they're just getting mad at everybody and telling you should do this or you're a bad person. And I just feel like it's actually like the other way around, like, and it seems like it would take longer and it seems like it wouldn't work. But actually, I feel like it's the only thing that will work, is if that we're just all absolutely in love with nature and taking care of her, and that I think changes will just happen so much swifter. And yeah, just all these, everybody making these small changes and actions is just, there's 7 billion people, so like that's a lot of small changes that can add up really quickly. So to get to your other, sorry, I feel really passionate about this.
Good. That's why I love you.
Molly the Baptist.
Yeah, well, that's why I love you. And that's why I know how important your work is, you know, in terms of helping individual people who want to have earth-centered businesses, right? Who want to come into that relationship and help other people, right? I feel like that's at the core of what you are doing. And it's like, it comes from that passion, right?
Totally. And I think that what I'm seeing above all is that it's really leading by example. So I just live my life like this. That's just the way that it is, and people know that about me. So I've noticed that a lot of the ways that I help people, I feel like it's by being myself and helping other people feel comfortable seeing that spark in themselves, and then being able to talk about it. So it looks different with all different people, and the more I'm doing it, the more I realize just how valuable it is. Like, you don't always have to make a business out of something, which is like a mindset block that I had to get over. But really a lot of it is like, people notice that I do things, so they ask me about them, or they'll tell me about how they tried it, and then I can encourage them to keep trying it. Like my little sister this year, when she bought a house, and at first she was so intimidated because the person before her had left like all these gardens, and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to take care of them all. I don't know anything about any of them. But she came up and she picked up some seedlings from my garden to grow like a little vegetable patch. And then all of a sudden over the summer, it turned into this whole other thing. She was like building compost bins and saving seeds and doing all this other stuff because she had the, a push and some encouragement at the beginning. So I like to be that person for people, and I very much describe myself as a catalyst for things. So I love to start things. So I love to help other people start things, because then that means for me, I've got all these other things to start and they're all growing. So that's really exciting to me. But what I'm getting at here is that I have a lifestyle that's expressive of me. So it's unique, but I feel like it's geared towards this overarching value that we all can share, which is like developing a loving relationship with the earth. And so I incorporate it through like rituals and seasonal celebrations and my garden and making food and things. But for somebody else, it might look totally different. But I think that's where I can help people, is creating a lifestyle around this thing that you care about, because the more you can, I feel like, let it infiltrate all the areas of your life, the better off you'll be, the better off the planet will be, the better off everything will be. Part of the way this started for me was I get really stressed out going into grocery stores and seeing like just the rows and rows of yogurt and milk. So for like 5 months, I was like, Molly, you should make your own yogurt. You should make your own yogurt. And I researched it, and it didn't look too hard, but I kept not doing it. And finally one day I just couldn't take it anymore, just like seeing all that excess and waste, which some people might be like, well, just don't eat yogurt, but I like yogurt. So this is an example of like taking it and making it yours. So I experimented with making my own yogurt from a local dairy in my state that sells it in cardboard cartons. And so now I make my own yogurt once a week, and it's not super hard, but I put it in glass jars, and I save like 12 pounds of plastic a year, and all of that shipping, the petroleum of people shipping things on diesel trucks and the plastic that goes into making the container. So in my head, that was a way that I could really express that value, not just like through my garden, but through my kitchen. So
nice. Well, so if anyone out there is listening and resonates with Molly and wants to start something, wants to live a lifestyle that is more sustainable and connected, and have that feeling of, like you said, being in love with the earth, then they can contact you, right, through our GrowMe central channel and get you connected. And she will catalyze you to start things. It is true. You have done that for me in many ways and continue to, and I've seen you do it for people around you. And also, I do happen to know that one of your specialties is, and like you said, it does have to do with a lifestyle, right? Because we live a life as humans and as nature that is, well, not dictated by, because we've created our lives to be in certain ways where it's not anymore, you know, but where it can be in harmony and in concert with the seasons, right? And the changes. And we can actually utilize those and interact with those in other ways, you know, that add value to our lives. So next week, you're going to be diving more deeply into that, right?
Yes. I'm so excited.
Yay. So y'all stay tuned for that, because I'm really excited to more deeply be in tune with the seasons, and in love with the earth even more than I already am. You have any last little tidbit, inspiration, things you want to say to people out there who might want to get started on something?
Yeah, so something that happened to me personally was that I had this really deep desire and this love for the planet, but I got very distracted by that eco-anxiety, which is a real thing. I actually saw, like, there is a book on managing your eco-anxiety the other day. And actually, our permaculture class that we're in together, I finally got brave and vulnerable one day and just posted up there. I said, like, hey, I really care about all of this stuff, but I have such a hard time actually doing things or confronting it, because it just feels so negative and insurmountable, and it just feels like a big horrible thing, and like, why bother, and it's very scary. And I got so many beautiful responses back of people just encouraging me, and just different ways of looking at it, and just really feeling very empowered that, like, there is something you can do about it, and it starts with your lifestyle, and then it might lead to something else. So, like, when I first did this, like I said, I was starting by making my own yogurt and taking a permaculture class and then growing my own vegetables. But as soon as I kind of opened up to that, got past that big fear, which still does every now and then, I'll like think about things and get all downhearted, but it's much easier now to think for solutions, like what. And that was a big breakthrough that I had. It was like, what if it is just really simple? Like, what if it's not super complicated? What if we can make a difference? Like, what if enough people did? Like, what if, like, we don't need to just sit here and fester in this fear, and there really are solutions. But it's also a real thing. So, like, if you're feeling that, it's totally fine and normal, because it can be traumatic, but also there's so many solutions, and nature is just so beautiful and loving that the more you get into it is, so like I said, I started and it was kind of small picture, small potatoes, but now I'm doing this with you. It's turned into GrowMe, which is like an international thing of people getting together and doing gardening. So, like, here I was afraid that I would not be able to make this change in the world that would be big enough to satisfy, like, the longing in my soul to do something, but I just had to start somewhere, and now it's turned into this literal global movement. So that's pretty badass.
Yay. That is badass. And yeah, I just thank you for all of everything that you're doing and being on all the different dimensions. And you're right. You're so right. Like, it can be overwhelming, and really just the thing is to start with whatever, you feel interested in. So if you're interested in something and want to get started, contact the Catalyzer Master Gardener, Molly Bouffard, and I'll have links for that below in the description. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with us.
Yeah.
I love being with you always. So thank
you. I love it. I love you. And I love everybody. And so does the earth.
Yeah. Me too. On that note, thank you for being here. And we'll see you next week for our seasonal seminar.
Absolutely.
Bye.